Anyone else remember Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Why does this theme go so goddamn hard? Here it comes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Ah, what a throwback. Welcome to First Kick Seahawks, the show where we prepare you for the first kick of every play by game day. And we like to have fun here, right? I like to have a fun little intro that sometimes matches the theme, sometimes doesn't. For today, the theme is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Who wants to join the Seahawks 53 and make that fucking bread? Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's get this thing a-rolling. As we discussed yesterday on the Connor Williams video, I had said that I had already predicted who the starting 8 offensive linemen will be. Now, this doesn't mean that they're only going to have 8 people on the 53 for the offensive line, but let's take a look at that. Why don't we? Why don't we go through the roster and make a prediction? A lot of people do predictions before preseason. That doesn't make much sense to me because you never know how someone's going to perform and you never know if somebody's going to get signed. So, I would like to go over the roster today. A couple things about this. One, there are some locks that I have, and then there's a bunch that are up in the air. But I have, so far, this isn't including the ones that are up in the air, right? The best guess is offense will have 24 players on the 53. Defense will have 26. And, of course, we have 3 special teams, Myers at kicker, Dixon at punter, and then Chris Stoll at long snapper. Obvious one everyone wants to hear first is quarterback because that's all anyone ever cares about. 2 starters at quarterback, Geno Smith and Howell. The big question is P.J. Walker. I think Sam Howell, based off of the way that he ran the offense, right? He ran the offense really well. The results weren't always there, but he was still able to get the job done. Maybe not overcome problems at the tackle positions. But I have Howell getting the roster over P.J. Walker. The big thing is, would Walker make it to our practice squad? I'm not so sure. He's one of those guys where right after week 3, you might just fucking try to find a way to trade him for a 7th round pick or some random ass wide receiver you've never heard of that you then would try to get onto your practice squad or to replace wide receiver number 7. So I would hypothesize and predict that Sam Howell is going to be our second quarterback in the 2024 season and that Walker won't be a Seahawk after preseason week 3. Running back position, Kenneth Walker obviously is the starter, followed by Zach Charbonnet. This is where it gets interesting. We have Kenny McIntosh, who got a ton of the snaps against the Chargers. Behind him, we have George Hulani. And, of course, we have Kobe Lewis and Kyrie Robinson. But Hulani got a ton of snaps. So I feel like the current competition is between Kenny McIntosh and George Hulani. Let me just check. Draft year. That was 2023, right? He was drafted last year, McIntosh. 7th round pick. And I feel like based off of the hype that has been going around the NFL and especially the NFC West regarding Kenny McIntosh, he might be that guy that you keep on the 3rd and see if you can't sneak George Hulani into your practice squad room as depth. So I have Kenny McIntosh being the 3rd running back on the roster. It just occurred to me that I didn't prepare the fullback position. Current Seahawks fullback. Michael Robin. No, that's not right. I would guess that they're just going to go with a tight end at fullback, which is a bit surprising. But on that note, we can just jump straight to the tight ends. I have for the starting tight ends George Fant, Farrell Brown, and then there's a question mark between Russell and Barner. Russell, of course, had the receiving touchdown against the Chargers. A.J. Barner, though, has a lot of experience with McDonald playing in Michigan. He also is more versatile as far as a receiver and his ability to go out to flanker and then block from the flanker position. We saw that a lot when he was in Michigan. So with that in mind, it could be possible that they keep 4 tight ends and then they just move Russell to fullback, right? Of course, it could always be a case like Nick Bellore or some random linebacker ends up doing the job. But I would much rather have somebody whose job involves receiving and blocking to have that job, especially when it comes to motion, so you can trick better. If Bellore goes to tight end in motion, they're probably not throwing to Bellore, you feel me? So with that in mind, I would keep 4 tight ends, Fant, Brown, Barner as tight end 3, and then move Russell to fullback. For the for the wide receiver position, I have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Bobo, Young, Shenault, mostly Shenault because of his special teams ability. I say that he beats out D. Eskridge. And then when, of course, you look at the rest of the roster, I have a big question mark because that only leaves you with 6 receivers. Who's left? Well, we have Cody White, Hayden Hatton, Ty Scott. And then on top of that, we also have Aesop Winston Jr., who a lot of Seahawk fans really like. And then, as I said before, D. Eskridge. I don't think D. Eskridge makes this team. It could be that he's just being given a chance. He showed off his legs in that Chargers game, but he's a classic case of one and done. He makes one play and then he's done for the month, right? Maybe for the year. It could be a matter of they just want him healthy. So as far as like that area where there's a big question mark of who's going to make the team, we have the option between, basically Winston and Eskridge. And then as far as Cody White, Hatton, and Scott, like, they could make the team, but we haven't seen anything yet. So out of the 2 of Eskridge and Winston, I would predict that Winston would make the team and that they would maybe keep Eskridge as a way to have him for special teams. But Winston also plays special teams. It's just not the same, right? So having 3 returners is a big ask, especially since Shenault has already obviously shown he's good at that. D. Eskridge would be number 2, but then we also have D. Williams who plays corner, and we will get to that later. But Eskridge has a lot to overcome. He has to overcome D. Williams being also a kick returner, and then he has to overcome Winston Jr., who has the potential of being wide receiver 7. When we then go to the offensive line, which is my favorite discussion in the NFL, is always offensive line. I said we have 8. If we keep Russell and Barner at tight end, we will have 8. If we end up not doing that and we have an O-lineman stay on the roster giving us 9, and then that O-lineman plays fullback, right? Then we'll have the 9. But here's who I have listed so far. At left tackle, we have Charles Cross and Stone Forsythe. Left guard, we have Tomlinson. Center, we have Williams and Oluwatimi. Right guard, we have Bradford and Haynes. Right tackle, we have Lucas and Fant. That makes up 9. Things of note, is that Bradford and Haynes can both play left guard. I believe Oluwatimi can also play guard, but you'd rather him not. So you have a backup player at all three interior positions, giving you 2. And then for the outside, you have Stone Forsythe, who can play left and right tackle, along with George Fant, who's probably going to be the starter week 1 at right tackle. If you want to push it, if you want to get to 10 offensive linemen, the other guy who probably makes the roster is Michael Jarrell. He got the start versus the Chargers. He was at right tackle. But there is his competition with McClendon Curtis, that frog Curtis, who immediately took over the snaps for Michael Jarrell. So I would bet that if the Seahawks do decide to go for 10 offensive linemen, that Michael Jarrell would be the guy who gets that job. This would probably mean that the Seahawks only have 6 wide receivers on the roster. But if they feel like Jarrell is that important and you don't want to lose him, then that he would be the 10th, but it's very unlikely that that's going to happen. So to reiterate, we have Geno Smith, Howell, Kenneth, Charbonnet. I'm going to say McIntosh, DK, Lockett, JSN, Bobo, Young, Shenault, and I'm going to say Winston Jr., Fant, Brown, and Barner. Really, I'm choosing Barner over Russell. That's the one that's not a lock. And then at left tackle, we have Cross Forsythe, left guard Tomlinson, center Williams, Oluwatimi, right guard Bradford and Haynes, right tackle Lucas and Fant, which would put you at 24 players on the roster. You could also swap out Winston for Barner and keep the 24. Defense, I have 26 players listed on defense. That position group, that side of the field always requires more types of players, more adaptation, right? There's just more for them to do than on the offensive side. So I have Leonard Williams, Murphy, and Mike Morris listed at defensive tackle. For nose tackle, we have Reed and Hankins, who did get the start over Byron Murphy in that Chargers game. Hankins, of course, has been around since 2013. At defensive end, we have Dre'mont Jones and Mafe. Just the 2, but that's all right because we've already established that Murphy and Morris, more particularly Morris, can play defensive end. At Sam, which also is a position that plays inline, we have Nwosu, Darrell Taylor taking that snap over Hall, but really Hall could be the number 2 and Taylor could be the number 3. I keep him at number 2 because, like Nwosu, Darrell Taylor can actually drop into coverage. Middle linebacker, we have Tyrell Dodson and then Rhattigan. Rhattigan, I believe, famously had a blown out knee a few years ago and then came back ready to go. I would like to see an upgrade at middle linebacker, but they play really well. It's basic ass football, right? We haven't seen them. For instance, Sean McVay has schemes specifically designed to fuck with the middle linebacker. So we haven't seen them go up against any schemes like that yet. But on the weak linebacker side, we have Jerome Baker, who can play Mike, and then we have Tyrese Knight. So if it turns out that Knight is too good to keep off the field, it is likely that we could see Baker slide inside to middle linebacker so that you could have Nwosu, Baker, and Knight on the roster. And if they decide to go with 4 linebackers, it would be Nwosu, Baker, Dodson, and Knight for your 4 linebacking core. For cornerbacks, this one gets tricky. Obviously, we have Reek Woolen, Witherspoon, Trey Brown, Prichett, Michael Jackson. And then, after the 5, which you need more than 5 corners, there's a big question mark. I listed it down to 3 guys. We have Artie Burns, Boykin. What's his first name? Lance Boykin. And then D. Williams, like I said, D. Williams does play special teams. So he's a guy that I would assume is a lock unless Eskridge ends up taking that job. So you got the DDs, and it's either Eskridge or Williams. I would think that Williams is going to take that job over Artie Burns purely because of his youth. Burns has that injury history, but also because Williams can play special teams, and we're going to need that. Whether we keep Eskridge or not, we could end up with Eskridge and Williams on the team at the same time. But if Burns ends up being really good outside, then it could be that we try to sneak Williams onto the practice squad, considering we have Shenault, who's probably going to be starting on returns. So if you have Shenault and Eskridge, you can let Williams go. Personally, I would rather keep Shenault and Williams and let Eskridge go, but that's all up in the air. I do not have Willie Roberts, DJ James, or Carlton Johnson making the roster unless they show something outstanding. I see those guys as going to the practice squad or getting picked up by another team, and then it's very likely that John Snyder is going to bring in somebody that he picks up from another team. Historically, John Snyder has found safeties and corners that are being released, teams trying to sneak them to practice squad, and then bringing them in and making them a starter. So it's likely, I think, that we're going to get a corner at cornerback 7 or even cornerback 8, right, who was not in Seahawks training camp. All right. And then we have the strong safety positions. You have Jenkins, Wallace, and then the big question is Blair. This again gets to how many players can play corner. We know Marquise Blair can play nickel, and he plays free safety and strong safety. I think he's too good as far as potential to not keep on the roster. But he could go purely because he's just been a tryout and maybe he tweaks something again. Historically, he has had injury issues. But if you want to let Burns, Williams, and Boykin not make the team, you could have Blair in there. Of course, you could keep Williams and Blair on the roster. That would give you a total of 6 plus 5 safeties, 11 safeties, 11 defensive backs, right? And Cody Bryant and Blair among them can play in the nickel position, or Bryant, I believe, can play outside. So you get good versatility. But I would try to keep Blair and then Williams. And then at free safety, we have Julian Love, top 100. Congratulations. And Cody Bryant, who was a standout in college, but the question with him is always athleticism. Can he keep up with the fastest of the fast, the pace of the NFL? So far, he hasn't shown he can do that, but he has proven he's the turnover machine for 3 years running now. And he started doing it again. So you have to keep him on the roster, I think, for versatility and because of just his potential to make explosive plays in the defensive backfield. To reiterate, we have Williams, Murphy, and Morris at defensive tackle, Reed and Hankins at nose tackle. At defensive end, Dre'mont and Mafe. Sam, we have Nwosu, Taylor, and Hall. Middle linebacker, we have Dodson, Rhattigan. At weak linebacker, we have Baker and Knight. Cornerback, Reek, Woolen, Witherspoon, Brown, Prichett, Jackson, and Williams. Jenkins, Wallace, and Blair are at strong safety. And then at free safety, Love and Bryant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I would probably keep Burns on the roster to get it up to 25. And then you have the option of either keeping a Boykin or a guy, again, that they bring into the roster, or just bring in another wide receiver like Eskridge and Winston, right, to keep your wide receiver room stocked. So that's all I have for today. A little different type of show than we normally do, but I do like getting some versatility under my belt, right, as far as what the show can offer. We will be offering more content to come as we get ready for the Titans game. And I'm trying to find a Broncos show or a writer so we can get an interview with a Broncos fan before week 1. So fingers crossed that I pull that off. Of course, we have Diane Taylor, formerly of Field Goals. She's expected to show up towards the end of the month, early September, to start the season and kick things off. So it's exciting to see Diane Taylor show up. Please like the video and subscribe to First Kick Seahawks. I appreciate you all being here, and you enjoy your day, evening, something like that.